How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Starve Together MODlight. Today we are going to be focusing on 5 mods specifically for the Gorge event that complement your client-side experience. So let's get started. The first mod we're going to be taking a look at here is called the Gorge Extender. It is by Cunning Fox and Zarklord, and it adds quite a few different user interface elements to the screen, which gives you more insight into the overall match information. So for example, at the very top of the screen where the hanger bar is, it will show the percentage left of the hanger bar just below it. In the left-hand side of the screen by default, there's also a number that shows how much time you have left, as well as which round you are on. Mumsy now also makes an appearance at the very bottom of the screen, just above your inventory, where she will repeat the lines that she normally has above her head. This is especially useful for players who are not close to Mumsy, who want to know what the next recipe is going to be. On the left side of your inventory, there is also an icon and some text that reminds you what the current meal is that the Gnaw currently craves. So this gives you sort of a heads up so you can figure it out without having to be close to Mumsy, and it complements Mumsy's text above the inventory bar as discussed previously. This is probably one of the highest rated mods for the Gorge currently on the workshop, and for me, one of the reasons why I continually return back to it time after time is it appears the feature set is fully stable. I've never had any crashing issues related to this mod, unlike some other Gorge mods. So whenever I need a Gorge mod that I am fairly confident is going to work just fine along with some other new ones, I generally go to this one. It has all the information you really need. It adds a plethora of information to your overall game, and to boot is one of the most reliable out there. The next Gorge mod we are going to be taking a look at here is called Seed Labels by Buttery Standcakes, and this is a mod that is pretty simple but can come in really helpful, especially for players still getting acclimated to the Gorge who are not familiar with the names of the various seeds from the event. It pretty much does what it says on the container and renames the seeds in-game and seed packets to show what they actually grow. So instead of needing to buy fluffy seeds to get potatoes, you can just buy potato seeds. Instead of needing to buy blue seeds for wheat, you can get wheat seeds, and so on and so forth. Some could probably make the case that this is a mod that sort of handicaps the players by giving them an easy way out instead of forcing them to memorize what types of seed packets grow which types of plants. But I personally found it rather esoteric as to why Clay did this in the first place. After all, they introduced new types of plants, and yet the seeds had a different name from the new plant that they just introduced. By and large, a lot of these plants didn't currently exist in the standard Don't Starve Together experience. And basically the only justification I can see for this naming convention is to just further obfuscate the mechanics of the game and make sure that players would make more mistakes simply due to incongruity in seed labeling. The next mod we're going to be taking a look at here is called Gorge Detailed Summary by Glass Arrow. And it is definitely one of my favorites so far, even though it has not seen necessarily the same amount of appreciation from the community. At the moment, there hasn't been enough feedback even for this mod to give it a star rating, but it modifies the end-game summary screen for the Gorge event and provides additional details and helpful information. So for example, you'll have a custom experience bar, which will now show you how much experience you actually gained in this past match. There will be a button for a meal summary, which gives you a detailed list of all the meals that were made while you were connected to that match, in addition to the ingredients used to make each. There is a detailed summary screen of players' stats that can be shown by clicking on the player's badge itself. You can break down your experience sum into all of the factors that contributed to it. And then there are just simply more miscellaneous stats that include total coins gained, silverware used, cooking station usage, and ingredients used. If you are somebody who is interested in analyzing your performance or the performance of your teammates in greater depth, the Gorge Detailed Summary mod should be right up your alley. Now we're going to be moving into a bit of the stranger side of the Gorge mods, and these oftentimes involve foreign language mods. Have been translated somewhat into English, but the translation is frequently broken. So for the first one here, we're going to be looking at a mod called the Gorge 1.61. This is what it's called in English. I have no idea what it is called in its original language, but it can do some really interesting stuff, and I have mixed feelings on this mod as a whole, but it is most certainly one of the more original ones that I've seen for the Gorge event as a whole. So one of the things that you'll probably want to be paying close attention to here with the Gorge 1.61 mod is the ability to use the function keys on your keyboard to perform specific actions. Namely, pressing F1 will discard all items held in hand, F2 discards a handheld item, so like an axe or a hoe. Pressing F3 will automatically till the arable land. So if you think about it, if you are a character holding the hoe in your hand and you press F3, your character is going to automatically just systematically run through each and every individual possible space or location on the seed beds in the gorge and dig it up and prepare it for planting. And then if you have seeds in your inventory, you can press the F4 key on your keyboard, which will start automatically planting those seeds in the areas that you just previously tilled. F5 makes things even easier for the woodcutter on your team. By pressing it, you will automatically start chopping trees, and it says delivering the logs to the base, but I have not personally experienced that myself. I think I chopped a good 40 logs or so with this mod, using it automatically, and they never took any of the logs back to the base, so I'm not exactly sure how much this can be automated, but I think it is kind of nice to not have to just hold down that key on your keyboard to perform the chopping action as a woodcutter. Now, there are some downsides to this mod. From the way it feels to me, I think it adds additional lag, about a half of a second of lag in between actions. I'm not exactly sure how it performs what it does, the automation behind it, but it looks like it might actually be injecting clicks into the game or something, especially the way it looks when chopping down trees automatically. So, you know, your mileage may vary. It's a little bit of a dicey mod, but it is most certainly one of the more interesting mods for the Gorge out there, I think. The last mod we're going to be taking a look at here today is called Endless Gorging Mod by Zerillion, I believe is how I'm going to pronounce that name. And this is another mod that has been translated from what I believe was originally a Chinese mod. Once again, it does some very interesting things with the function keys, but unfortunately have been let down in multiple ways by this mod. For one thing, it seems to have compatibility issues with some of the other Gorge mods that I've used. So if you were planning on using this, you might want to use it by itself, but it has some interesting concepts or ideas behind it. For example, you can press F1 to start the salt timer. Now, I personally tried this and it has never worked for me, but if it does, and if somebody can make it work, it most certainly sounds like a compelling option for everyone on your team to go ahead and get this mod. And then when you press the salt timer, it will show up for everybody, so that way they all know when the salt is ready. It also has its own custom recipe book, and the reason that I kind of like this one over the default one that exists in the game is this recipe book generally gives you better specifics as to which ingredients can be used to make a recipe, as well as allowing you to click on that recipe once and then it will show it in text in the top left hand side of the screen, where you can easily refer to it without having to open the recipe book again. This has happened to me frequently where I'll say what recipe it is that we need to make, I'll take a look at the ingredients, and then by the time I get like 2 or 3 of those ingredients, I'll forget the 4th one, or I'll forget the 3rd one, and then have to go back and refer to the recipe book again. It looks amateurish, it looks clumsy, it looks like you can't remember what you're doing, and because that's kind of what it is. But this mod helps avoid that by just being able to click on that recipe inside that recipe book, and that recipe that you're currently working on will show up there in text in the top left hand side of the screen. So that for me was the redeeming grace for this mod, because like I said before, the salt timer and the sap timer simply did not work in my experience when I tried using it. Okay, so that's going to do it for this episode of Don't Starve Together MODlight. As per always, the links to the mods that I covered here will be in the description below this video, so go ahead and check them out if you're interested. If you end up liking them, be sure to thank the author for taking the time to create and share it with us. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.